Hi, it's me, Brooks. Thanks for joining me today on Heal This. I wanted to thank you for all of your support. It really means so much to me. I wanted to tell you a couple of stories. I lived in Alaska for about 15 years. And one particular winter, it was very snowy, more than usual. I think it was about 2011. It was dark outside. It's typically dark in the wintertime, right? So I opened the front door and the snow was almost up to the porch, and I had about 10 steps up to the top porch step. And I was very taken back by how much snow there was. So, without really thinking, I stepped out onto the porch and I immediately slipped and I fell, and I fell down the top two steps. I fell on my side right here, and then I kind of fell into the snow. It took my breath away, and I slowly turned over and crawled back into the house. And my older children were little then, and they laughed at me because they didn't understand what had happened, and I was crawling into the house in a ton of pain. That whole day, I was in so much pain. I had to sit up really straight, and if I turned at all, it would just zap me. It just hurt so bad. And so I really just took care of myself for a little while, and eventually, over about a week or two, I started to feel pretty normal, except for when I took a really deep breath in and I would have this pain, and it would, one of those kind of pains. Well, eventually, I went and saw a chiropractor. Now we're talking years later. And when I went, they did an x ray. And on the x ray, it showed some of the normal things. It was the first time I'd ever been to a chiropractor. But the thing that the doctor was taken back by was one of my ribs was twisted. Like if they were like this in my back, this one down here was kind of twisted like that. And so when he said that, I knew right away what that was from, and that was from that fall. And so he did an adjustment and the rib went back in, and I had such amazing relief. And I was thinking to myself, what the heck was I doing that I thought it was okay to walk around in so much pain? And that led me to thinking about how many people are walking around in pain all the time, every day. And not necessarily because they need chiropractic work. I'm not here to, plug that right now. But I started thinking about how many people are walking around in pain. So as time went on, and I started to think about what I was going to do with this big change in my life. So now I'm doing massage, and I've always been an extremely intuitive person. And as soon as I would start to sit down and really be in somebody's energy, I would a lot of times see pictures or receive messages for people. And at first, I thought, well, this is really interesting. I wasn't all the way sure what was going on. For me, it looks a lot like pictures in my mind or memories that aren't mine. It was something that I noticed that would start to happen even before my client would enter the room. And I started to understand that what was happening for me is that I was able to see people's blocks, their energetic blocks, things that were stopping them from progressing. And I started to really learn how to control it and focus on it, and, start and stop, or be open or not open. Just to clarify and for everyone to understand a little bit more, I can only see what you want me to see. So if there's something that you really just don't want me to see, I just don't see it. And we're talking about the subconscious mind and how I would connect to source first, always connecting to source, the source of all love, light, and abundance and gratitude and the creator of all. That's what I'm connecting to every time I'm trying to help someone. I've connected to source before I even come to work. I've usually meditated in the morning before I've come to work. And then before I walk into the room, again, a practice that I have where I connect to source and I say, can we help this person? Could you please show me how I can help this person? Can you use me to help this person somehow so that they can feel better, so that they can remove their blocks, and so that they can progress? Then, as I start my session with you, I sit down, and now I've entered the space where your energy is, and I ask you, my mind asks your subconscious mind, can I come in? And most of the time, if you've come to see me, you will say yes. And sometimes I've had people say no, and that's totally fine. I don't do that then. And other times I've had people say, just a minute, hold on. So I wait, and then I hear a message back. Okay, you can come in now. This is all through energy. I'm feeling, I'm hearing, I can feel you, or I can feel my client. But very interesting, as I start to work on somebody, I am noticing that I can sometimes feel their pain. And I might say something like, does it hurt right here? And I'll point right to somebody's back or shoulder, and they'll say, yes. And how do you know that? And I just said, because I can feel it in my body too. So it's different every session, and it's different for every person. But I started to notice a pattern that this is what was happening. Now that I've been doing this practice for several years and pairing that with different energy medicine modalities and a lot of research and a lot of looking into what other people are doing and how they do it, doing more training, I've come to the understanding that it's all about energy. Everything is energy. Your energy, I am energy, plants, animals, the whole universe is energy. Everything in the universe is in constant motion. And that energy is measured by vibration. And we typically measure vibration by frequency. And frequency is usually described as high frequency or low frequency, and sometimes referred to as light frequency or a dark frequency. We say it a lot. Good vibes, bad vibes, that kind of thing. Doesn't make anything right or wrong, but we can definitely tell the difference when the vibe is high or good or the vibe is low, right? Everything comes down to energy. All of us run on light and dark, high and low frequencies, just like a car battery runs on a positive and a negative charge. We just want to try to keep the dark energy in a headlock, lead with the light energy. We don't want to lead with the dark energy. When I say it like that, I think of it as we're all aware that we have this shadow side of ourself. We are all capable of accessing anger or betrayal or rejection, but we want to lead with love and light and abundance and gratitude and joy. I kind of think of it as we've got that low energy or dark energy in a headlock, and we're aware of it. We know it's there. We're keeping it under control and in balance, and we're healing it constantly. But we are trying to lead. And when I say lead, I mean vibrationally leading, coming from a place of love and joy and happiness. Sometimes that dark energy just starts to wrestle us, and it tries to get out because something triggers us and that resistance happens. And we think, well, what is this? Why am I feeling this way? That's when we need to really look at it and understand why it's there. Another thing about energy is we are spiritual energy in a physical energy body. Before we entered into our physical body, we were spiritual energy that existed somewhere else. And that comes with whatever energy was in that spiritual energy, right? If there was a past life, then in that past life, we might have unresolved energy that is carried over into this life. In this life, we are a combination and a beautiful blend of all of our grandparents and our parents. And we've come into this physical body. And this physical body is made up of DNA, which also has memory. It has this generational memory into our physical body. So here we are now. The spiritual energy has come into this physical energy, into our bodies. And oh my gosh, there's so much going on. And sometimes we don't know if it is ours from this life. We don't know if it is things that have been inherited and passed down through generations. We don't know if it's spiritual energy that is from past life. And we also know now that when we are in the womb, we are also absorbing energy from our mother. We could also be absorbing energy from outside of our mother, but typically it's from our mother. So this energy that I'm talking about comes in the form of emotions. It's also thoughts, because our thoughts really control and dictate our emotions. Our thoughts are constantly going, and we've attached emotions to our thoughts and our experiences. So then our experiences start reminding us or triggering emotions. All of that is energy. All of that is vibrating inside and is housed inside our bodies. So whatever we are vibrating at the loudest, whatever our frequency is that is the loudest, is what we will be calling in. So if the loudest frequency is lack, right? We are lacking, we don't have, we can't have, we won't have, then that's exactly what we're going to call in. We're going to keep calling in lack. We're going to calling in the wanting and the needing and don't have. But as soon as we decide that I'm going to change this story that I'm telling myself, if I change this story to be more accurate, and that is, I can have whatever I want. I believe that I am strong enough to do the work to have whatever I want. So as soon as I start to change that story, and that story is my thoughts that's going through my head, the attached emotion can be abundance and joy and gratitude. And there's so much energy going on all the time. Everything's moving. Our physical body is made up of cells. Each one of those cells has a tiny little brain in it, and it remembers things. And it's also vibrating at the frequency that we tell it to vibrate at. It believes us. So if we are sitting there and we are broadcasting over our physical body, I'm stupid, I'm ugly, I'm not good enough, or I can't have that, I'll never be that, this won't happen, I'll never find my soulmate, I'll never have a good job, I'll never do the things I want, I'm never going to travel, then guess what? That's exactly what our cells believe. They believe that you're never going to do those things and you're never going to be good enough. So do you know how to change that? You have to start changing your thoughts. And your thoughts start with exactly what you're thinking, right? What you're thinking, what you're saying, and what you're doing. This is where affirmations come in. This is where we hear it all the time. What's your mantra for the day? When I very first decided that I was going to change my life, I wrote affirmations every single day. It got to a point where I called it my mantra, and it was very, very long. And I got so good at knowing and reciting what it was because I would look at it on my phone. I had written it in a journal and I had typed it up on my notes on my phone. I would look at it at least twice a day. And it got to a point where I could recite it. It was almost like a defense. So when those negative thoughts would come in, I was like, oh, I got one for this. And this is where I say this affirmation. But it was something I had to practice right? It was something I had to do over and over and over again. And this is where your practice becomes your practice. So the verb becomes the noun. You know how a doctor has his practice? Well, your practice is your work, and your work is what you think of yourself. And if you think all the time, your thoughts are just running wild and crazy. Oh, that's ridiculous. I could never do that. I could never have a house like that. I could never travel there. I just can't. I don't have the money. I could never make the money. I'm not good enough, right? See how it just goes into that? But what it is that those are the stories that you've told yourself. If you want to do those things, you can do them. It has to start with just one thing. Pick the one thing. What is it? And then you start writing and you start talking and you start telling yourself, I am doing these things, and start noticing what comes up. What is the resistance for you? What is the block? What is the thing that's stopping you? Listen to yourself. At times I will go to my notes or my voice memos on my phone, and I will just start talking and I will just start saying the things. And then when I go back to listen to it, I can hear, oh, I'm really angry about this. Or I'm having a lot of fear about this, and I didn't know that I was fearful about that. So start listening to yourself. Start listening to your thoughts. That's why it's so important to journal. Just taking notes on yourself, thoughts you're having, ideas that are coming to your mind, or even just little prompts, finding a prompt that says, what do you feel about travel? What do you think about money? What are your thoughts about success? And it's not always going to look the way you thought it was going to look. It's hardly ever going to look the way you thought it was going to look. What are you feeling when you're talking about it, right? Money, success, a relationship, a different job, moving, body image, working. I noticed as an energy medicine practitioner is that it all comes down to energy. It all comes down to the vibration of your thoughts, your emotions, and the story you're telling yourself. Frequency, right? I want to challenge you to be more aware of what your thoughts are. What are the emotions that are attached to those thoughts? For instance, when you are aware of what's going on with ourselves, will help us to identify our own blocks and will help us to feel better in our own bodies. And this was why I started in the first place, was because I wanted to help people feel better. I wanted them to know, I want you to know that you don't have to be in pain every single day. And I want to help. And I know that there are so many people out there that want to help you. And there's not just one way of healing. We don't heal this one way. Sometimes it takes 10 different ways to heal this. Sometimes it's just a couple things. So, in future episodes, I want to talk about all the ways of healing, all the different ways that we can heal this.